Hello YouTube and Buick owners. Today I'm going to be discussing why the dash lights would be going out on you. And this gear selector right here still works. And over here where my radio is, that still shows. Although both of them are dimmer than usual. But all these other backlights, like you see down here on your climate controls that are normally on, do not work. Up here on the radio, all these backlights here don't work. And on the cluster, there's no speedometer light or temperature gauge light or fuel gauge light. But the idiot lights still work. So what's up with that? Well, let's take a look at that. Okay, this is a 2002 Buick Century. And there are videos out there of not just Buick Centuries, but other makes and models as well. They're having the same problem. And other people have put out some nice videos that you should take a look at to check out the simple things first and fix them to make sure you don't do an unnecessary amount of work that you don't need to do. There's things to check like the interior fuses. There's a 7.5 panel dimming fuse on this car. That needs to be checked and make sure it's not blown. And there's some under hood fuses that you need to check in a fuse block under there, front of the battery. I'll show it to you later. And they also mentioned that if taillights are out on the car, it's a safety feature built into it. It makes the instrument panel go dark to let you know that you have a tail light out. But I checked all those easy things on this car already and none of them helped my problem. So the next thing to check would be the headlight switch. So I'm going to take a look at that. I'm going to take it out. There's a little, let me get the light here and move it on this side. There's a little door right here on the side of the dash. It's a cover, a service access panel that needs to be taken off. So we're going to go ahead and take that off. There's no pry bar necessary. All I have to do is use my fingers. So I'll go ahead and take that off. Okay, this is going to be tricky holding the camera and getting this off, but see, I don't have a pry bar, but if I carefully pull back right here, so you can hear the clips releasing. Okay. See, there's a clip there, a clip there, and there is a tab right there to help you guide it into the hole. And there's the holes that the clips came out of right there. So, okay, this is the headlight switch right here. And hold on a second while I find a good place for the light. Okay, this is the panel cover right here. And the headlight switch is right there. And the knob, that's all part of the headlight switch. And on the side where the service panel is, this is all part of the headlight switch too. So is this. I need to remove this screw and this screw, and that unit should be able to be wiggled out of there. So I'm going to go ahead and take those screws out right now. Okay, a smaller screwdriver should do the trick. So I'll take that one out and then followed by that one. Okay, so the two screws are out now. There's also a little tab right there to help you reinstall it later. There's another one right there. So when you put this back together, make sure the screw holes line up right and that these little pegs right here go through those holes right there, and it should be in the right position where it needs to be. I'm going to put the screws in a sandwich bag for safekeeping so that they don't grow legs and walk away sometime during this project. I'll lay those aside for safekeeping. Okay, so I'm going to begin the process now of trying to pull that headlight switch out through this side hole right here. I can't hold the camera and do that at the same time, so I'm going to put it down just a minute. Okay, so I got it worked out a little bit right here. You can see it's at an angle now. See how the headlight switch looks like it's a little bit moved right now, a little bit out. Okay, so I'll keep wiggling carefully wiggle this thing out of its location in the side here. Don't force anything. Just be careful, be patient, and be gentle. That's what I stress. So I'm going to put the camera down for a little bit again while I keep working it out. Okay, see where I'm at now? So okay, I need two hands again, so I'm going to put the camera down again. Okay, there we go. I had to put the camera down, so with my right hand I pushed right here, and with my left hand I guided this back part out through this hole right here. So now it's out. So now I'm going to disconnect the harness on it. There's a let me move the light here a second. There's a tab right there on this side, and there's also one on the other side. So this time I am going to use a screwdriver and very, very lightly pry out on it and use my fingers to help loosen that harness out of there and disconnect it from the headlight switch. Okay, the headlight switch is out now, so I'm going to take it to another place, my workbench, so we can look at it there and talk about it. So I'll meet you there. Oh, by the way, this is what it looks like now. I didn't have to take those blue clips off to get that harness off. At first I thought I was going to have to by looking at it, but I don't. Those blue clips can just stay on there. And there's a yellow wire right there at the end of this harness. And it looks like there's a gray one next to it. It's my understanding that the yellow wire is the power in to the headlight switch, and the gray one is the power out going to the instrument panel lights. So in case we find that the headlight switch is good, we would want to look at that wiring right there, the yellow cable and the gray cable, to see if there's any outlying problems in the dash area in that wiring. But I'm going to meet you on my workbench so we can look at the headlight switch. Okay, here we are at the workbench, and there's the headlight switch. And that right there is where the harness plugs into. Now look at all these pegs around here. They have a nice shiny copper look to them. All except for this one in the upper right hand corner. And that's kind of a burn spot look to it. That's what's causing all the grief about the instrumentation lights going out. So I'm going to try to clean that up a little. But since it looks like that, I'm going to go ahead and go to Rock Auto and order a new switch and start it en route. I'm going to clean this up as like a patch until the new one arrives so I get some instrumentation lights back again. But I would expect that in this condition it's probably going to cause the instrument panel lights to be unreliable, so they'll probably flicker on and off randomly at will until I get that new switch put in. But to clean it, to clean that connection, that burn connection right there, I have brought some alcohol and a cotton swab that I'm going to dip in that alcohol. Now see how fat my finger is? I'll never get it down in there to clean around that connection there. But with this cotton swab, it can get down really easy down in there. So let me dip it in the alcohol. Okay, I dipped it in there, but I don't want to put it on my headlight switch drenching wet, so I'm going to try to rub it around the neck of the alcohol bottle to wring it out. It's just like when you mop your kitchen floor, you stick it in the bucket. You don't pull it out of the bucket and go right to the kitchen floor with it all full of water, because it'll make a big mess on your floor, so you wring it out. I'm going to do the same thing with this right here. Okay, then I'm going to go down in here with that and clean around that connection. To do a better job, I'm going to put the camera down while I clean this, and then I'll come back. Okay, I'm back. So this is how it turned out. See, it's got a much better copper look to it than what I started out with. But I have no idea what the female part of the connector looks like inside there, if it's just as bad or not. But I'm done with the cleaning part of it, so I'm going to reinstall this switch in the car and try to work with it until my new headlight switch arrives in the mail. So I'll see you back in the garage. Okay, back in the garage. I'm going to hook the harness back up to this headlight switch. By the way, I did disconnect the ground cable on the battery a while ago before I took the headlight switch out. So make sure you do that too. So I'll go ahead and plug the switch back into that harness. I don't think it's possible to plug it in backwards. It can only go in one way because of the pegs on there. If you manage to get it in backwards, you probably bent pegs on there, but if you put it in right, you shouldn't have any resistance or any problem plugging it back in. Okay, I got it all aligned right. I haven't seated it yet, but that yellow cable right here next to the gray one, there's a label on my headlight switch. This says assembled in Mexico. So make sure the yellow cable faces that side of the switch. Again, I really don't think it's possible to put it in backwards, but you want to, it just reaffirms that you're doing it right. So I'll go ahead and seat that. Okay, it's seated now. When I push down on that harness with my thumbs on both sides, I heard a decisive click when it seated. So that means I'm pretty sure I did it right. So now I'm going to work that switch back into this hole here that I pulled it out of. Again, when you do that, do it carefully, gently, and be patient. See the knob starting to come out the dash hole? It looks like this right now from the side. So I'm going to put the camera down again and keep working it through there until it's seated properly in front of where the screw holes are ready to accept the screws. Alright, I got the screws started by hand. I'm going to finish tightening with a screwdriver on both sides. This side and that side over there. Okay, I got the screws back in and tightened. Now you want to make sure the knob on the dash has a nice centered appearance to it, that it's not shifted anyway. So keep tab of that when you're tightening all those screws down, those two screws. So I'm going to go ahead and reconnect the battery now. Okay, the ground cable is hooked up again. So I'm going to go ahead and test the lights and see if our instrument lights are back. Okay, there they are. So it did work. Check the climate control. Okay, those back lights are back on now. And it doesn't show up too good on the power window switches, but they're back on too. So there's one thing left to do, and that's to put the cover back on the side of the dash to cover up the headlight switch access panel. Okay, here's the panel. So you see where that fold is right there in the shape of it. Make sure it matches the shape of the instrument panel. Make sure you're not putting it in backwards or anything. So start that. So it looks like that. Position it correctly. See that clip right here? Well, there's a clip hole right there. I'm going to need two hands again, so I need to put the camera down. Okay, so it looks like that right now. So it looks like the clips are just on the verge of going in. There's a tiny little gap on the side right there. I'm only going to use finger pressure to put that back in. No rubber mallet or any tool like that required. See? Just a nice, decisive little snap you heard there. And it's back on. Looks nice and clean without air gaps. Okay, so there you have it, YouTube and Buick owners. That's all there was to fixing my Century. At least the patch until my new headlight switch gets here. So I'll try to live off the buggy switch here until my new one arrives. Like I said earlier, they will probably still flicker from time to time, go out and come back on randomly at will. But I'll try to live with that until my new switch gets here. And when it does, it's going to be the same process to take this switch out and put in the new one, except this time I won't have to clean the contacts. So there you have it. And again, if you're a little apprehensive about working on your car because it's a different make and model, or even if it's a Buick Century like mine, and you don't feel like you have the mechanical aptitude, don't be afraid to take it to a service technician that's qualified to change it and save you the headache of doing it. But if you feel like you're able to do this, you're not going to break anything on your car, then you might want to go ahead and try it. Thanks for watching, and good luck. Okay, it's 3 days later now, and the switch came by priority mail. So I decided to get an OEM one, the AC Delco, and I will pull it out and we'll have a look at it. See, everything is nice and shiny in this one. So I'll go ahead and install that and see if it cures our problem. There was an issue with the other one, the old one. When I cleaned the contacts, I told you that it might be flaky, come on and off. It turns out it did do that. So evidently cleaning that contact up in the upper right hand corner here on the old one didn't solve the problem. So I will go ahead and put a whole new switch in, and I will test it then and see if there's any continuing problems or if this in fact did solve the problem, and I'll let you know how it turns out. Thank you. Okay, it's been 2 weeks now since I installed my headlight switch, and I want to report on my success. They are still working. The dash lights are still working. The first time I just cleaned up the old headlight switch contacts, and like a short while later the lights were out again and they would come on and off randomly, but the problem has not reoccurred with my new headlight switch. So the instrument cluster lights are still working, and over here my climate control lights are still working. And the radio, that's all still working. And the switches on the door for the headlights, for the power windows and door locks are still working. Everything is good. So I've run it for hours and for the last 2 weeks to make sure it wasn't going to flicker like the old headlight switch did. So in this case, it was the solution to my problem to put a new headlight switch in. I'm not going to go so far as to say it's going to be everybody's cure because, there's miles and miles of wiring in the car and stuff like that, so there could be rare instances where somebody else could have another outlying problem somewhere in the wiring. But this should be the cure for most people's problems whose instrument lights won't come on when the headlights are on. So good luck to you all, and thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you all later. Thanks. Bye-bye.